皆さんこんにちは。今回はアメリカ版とスペイン語版のProBox TVで議題に上がっていたパウンド4パウンドトップ5のランキングについて翻訳しました。アメリカ版とスペイン語版ではランキングにどのような違いがあるのでしょうか。それでは始めましょう。
¿Qué tal amigos? Bienvenidos a los Ranking Shows aquí en ProBox TV. Les saluda Ricardo Celis. Hoy quiero saludar al hombre del Salón de la Fama, Juan Manuel Dinamita Márquez. Y también hasta Arabia Saudita, donde va a narrar el próximo combate. Allá está nuestra Biblia del boxeo, don Lalo Camarena. Señores, en el mundo del box, los rankings libra por libra cambian constantemente. Hoy puede estar arriba, una derrota básicamente te lleva hasta el sótano. Y precisamente hoy vamos a dar nuestro top 5, nuestros mejores libra por libra, y vamos a ir uno por uno, por supuesto, con el Dinamita y también con Lalo Camarena. Señores, ¿con quién comenzamos? Con el número 5, mi estimado Dinamita. ¿A quién tienes?
Ricardo, Lalo, abrazo para los dos. Yo creo que este es un tema medio polémico, pero bueno, cada quien tiene su forma de pensar, su forma de decir y vamos a decirlo. Yo tengo número 5-2 a Gervonta Davis y a Jesse Van Rodríguez. ¿Por qué? Porque hay que recordar Gervonta Davis a quien ha vencido, y yo para ponerlos en los números que tengo pensado es por el nivel de oposición que ha enfrentado cada uno de ellos. El nivel superlativo de en este caso, Gervonta Davis lo ha demostrado frente a rivales muy buenos, voy a mencionar algunos: Fran Martin, Ryan García, Héctor Luis García, también a Rolly Romero, Mario Barrios, Leo Santa Cruz, Yuriorkis Gamboa, etcétera. Ese gran nivel de oposición. Y ahora Van Rodríguez ha vencido a quién, últimamente a Juan Francisco el Gallo Estrada, un gran peleador, venció a su retador oficial, a Pedrín Guevara, y por supuesto también venció a Sonny Edwards, un peleador muy bueno, por la vía del knockout a los tres peleadores, y también le ganó decisión unánime a Carlos Príncipe Cuadras. Creo que para mí ellos son los números 5 en este momento.
Así que para el Dinamita está Tank Davis y Jesse Van Rodríguez en el número 5. Mi estimado Lalo, ¿tú a quién tienes en el número 5?
A Saúl el Canelo Álvarez, mi estimado Ricardo, con el gusto de saludarlos como siempre. El Canelo sigue siendo dominante. El Canelo le ganó con claridad a Jaime Munguía, que en el papel parecía ser un rival serio, un rival con cierta experiencia, no un rival fácil en su peso, ¿no? Que eso es lo que muchas veces se le ha cuestionado a Saúl Álvarez, el enfrentar a rivales más pequeños como Yermel Charlo, por ejemplo, o en una etapa de su carrera a Amir Khan, ¿no? Aquí era un peso de su división, y le ganó bien, le ganó claramente, lo mandó a la lona, no lo pudo noquear al final, porque Munguía es fuerte, está joven, y me parece que eso demuestra que el Canelo sigue siendo serio, que sigue siendo comprometido, y luego en su más reciente pelea, pues venció a un rival más joven, sí, con menos experiencia, por supuesto, pero que evidentemente le ganó con claridad, y eso también demuestra que el Canelo no se distrae, que sigue estando ahí, dominando su división, barriendo su división, tiene todos los títulos de su división. En su última pelea, pues prácticamente arrasó a Berlanga, ¿no? A este boxeador de origen puertorriqueño, y por eso le doy el número 5, ¿no? En una lista que está complicada porque hay mucho nivel hoy, ¿no? Hay boxeadores que atraviesan por un buen momento, hay varios que están invictos, y además porque pues el Canelo es en la actualidad el boxeador campeón del mundo con más knockouts, de los que están activos, es el que tiene más knockout, entonces no tengo duda, pongo en esta lista número 5 al mexicano de Guadalajara, Jalisco, Saúl el Canelo Álvarez.
Claro, con esas dos victorias que tuvo, primero en mayo en contra de Jaime Munguía y después en septiembre en contra de Edgar Berlanga. El problema es que no tiene el título de la Federación Internacional de Boxeo. Hay que recordar que la federación le estaba tratando de imponer esa pelea en contra de William Cole, un boxeador que básicamente desconocido, no hubiera jalado mucho en el pay-per-view. Canelo no quiso, le quitaron el título al Canelo Álvarez, y desde hace mucho el Canelo siempre se ha mantenido entre los mejores libra por libra. Yo en mi número 5, señores, tengo a Tank Davis. Tank Davis, que a pesar de que solamente hizo una sola pelea este año, que fue en contra de Frank Martin, se mantiene invicto, 30 victorias, 28 de ellas por la vía del knockout. Y lo estabas comentando, mi estimado Dinamita, la calidad de oponentes que ha tenido Tank Davis en su carrera ha sido impresionante. Y además vuelve a pelear ahora en el mes de diciembre, se va a enfrentar en contra de Lamont Roach, un boxeador, claro, que está subiendo de categoría,
現在、デイビス選手の試合は2025年3月1日に変更されています。
Es sumamente amplio favorito Tank Davis. Vamos a ver cómo le va en este combate. Mi estimado Dinamita, vamos al number 4. ¿A quién tienes en el número 4?
Número 4, Artur Beterbiev, el peleador con su gran victoria, peleador ruso, su gran victoria frente a Dmitry Bivol, lo pone como número 4. Hay que recordar que tiene un récord de 21 peleas ganadas, 20 por la vía del knockout, excepto la pelea con Dmitry Bivol. Y hay que ver que le ha ganado a Callum Smith, a Anthony Yarde, a Joe Smith Jr., Oleksandr Usyk y a Malignaggi en su última pelea, y creo que eso le peleó en su pelea a Bivol y a Malignaggi también, y creo que eso lo pone como número 4. El gran nivel de oposición que ha enfrentado, y su última pelea frente a Bivol fue una pelea cerrada, una pelea que creo que estuvo por disputar la decisión, pero a final de cuentas victoria, por eso lo tengo en el número 4.
Yo tengo, Ricardo, como número 4 a Terence Crawford, gran campeón, era el número 1 con Inoue, ahí peleando por el número 1 con Oleksandr Usyk, pero en este ascenso a la división Super Welter ganó, sí, pero no se vio con la categoría como campeón de peso welter cuando derrotó a Israel Madrimov. Le ganó con claridad, no hubo polémica, pero no vimos a ese gran boxeador, entonces creo que, y siempre es el gusto, ¿verdad? Creo que eso lo baja un par de escalones y lo tengo como número 4. Gran campeón, creo que le faltarán más pruebas en la división de los super welters para ver si puede remontar y volverse a apropiar del primero o del segundo lugar en esta lista, Ricardo, Juan Manuel, libra por libra.
Claro, por eso fluctúan tanto los libra por libra en el mundo del boxeo. A principios del 2024, Terence Crawford estaba en el número 1 precisamente, peleando ahí con el monstruo Inoue. Yo también tengo a Terence Crawford en el número 4, a pesar de que tuvo solamente una pelea en el 2024. Y como lo estás comentando, Lalo, una pelea que no se vio muy bien, Terence Crawford en contra de Israel Madrimov, este pasado 3 de agosto allá en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Pero bueno, ese es mi número 4, Terence Crawford. En el número 3, ¿a quién tienes, Dinamita, en el número 3?
Yo tengo el número 3 a Terence Crawford. Su victoria, aunque no fue lucida frente a Madrimov, a final de cuentas fue victoria. Fue victoria, y creo que cuando un peleador que está en los mejores rankings libra por libra debe de ganar. Independientemente de la forma, si se puede noquear para mostrar la superioridad que tiene un peleador que está rankeado en los mejores libra por libra, pero a final de cuentas creo que fue su primera pelea en la división de peso super welter. Un rival no fue fácil, y creo que victoria, al final victoria, aunque no se haya visto bien. Yo tengo como número 3 a Terence Crawford.
¿Lalo?
Yo tengo a Gervonta Davis, ¿no? Sigue invicto, sigue con ese récord de noqueador, ¿no? Ahora son 28 knockouts en 30 victorias, la última pelea frente a un rival que quizá no es el más fuerte en la división de peso ligero, pero lo noqueó, y lo noqueó bien en 8 episodios, sin batallar demasiado. Había ganado prácticamente todos los rounds, ¿no? Con alguna dificultad en el primero, en el segundo, que le puso ahí Frank Martin, pero sigue demostrando que es espectacular, que es contundente, que es un boxeador que le gusta agradar a la gente, y ese sello de noqueador pues lo mantiene, ¿no? Ya fue en otro momento, el año pasado, en abril, también pues demostró esa fama de noqueador cuando pues mandó a dormir con ese gancho al hígado a Ryan García. Me quedo con él, ¿no? Un boxeador espectacular, un boxeador que atrae a las multitudes, y un boxeador, a mí me encanta el estilo de Gervonta, por eso lo tengo en ese lugar como número 3 en el libra por libra.
Yo estuve a punto de poner un empate en el número 3, Artur Beterbiev junto a Jesse Bam Rodríguez, pero al final de cuentas me quedo con Jesse Bam Rodríguez, este gran boxeador que se está convirtiendo en el terror de los pesos chicos. 2 grandes combates este año, especialmente cuando derrotó a Juan Francisco el Gallo Estrada de una manera espectacular. Se levanta de la lona después de caer por primera vez en su carrera a la lona, se levanta y consigue esa victoria en contra del Gallo Estrada. Y después su última victoria, precisamente el fin de semana, en contra de Pedro Guevara, al cual lo aniquiló en 3 asaltos allá en la ciudad de Filadelfia. Así que mi número 3 en el ranking libra por libra, yo tengo a Jesse Bam Rodríguez, que si sigue de esta manera, definitivamente puede llegar a ser el número 1. Ahora vamos al número 2. Y en el número 2, mi estimado Dinamita, ¿a quién tienes en el número 2?
Yo le tengo número 2 a Oleksandr Usyk. Su victoria frente a Tyson Fury fue una victoria buena, una victoria en la cual hubo sus altibajos en algunos episodios por parte del peleador ucraniano, pero después ajustó y cerró mejor, y eso le da la victoria frente a Tyson Fury. Hay que ver en la revancha, que viene en diciembre, la pelea entre Tyson Fury y Oleksandr Usyk 2. Creo que por eso lo tengo número 2, por una victoria, un gran peleador técnico, un peleador que te boxea bien, un peleador que te contragolpea, que mueve bien la cintura. Me refiero a Tyson Fury. Gran victoria por parte de Oleksandr Usyk.
Y a punto de noquearlo, yo también lo tengo como número 2 a Oleksandr Usyk, que estuvo a punto de noquear a Tyson Fury. Yo sigo insistiendo que esa pelea debió haber terminado por nocaut en el 9º round y no aplicarle la cuenta de pie tan polémica que le hicieron a Tyson Fury. Y aquí pues yo le tengo que pedir permiso al productor y a mis compañeros. Yo no puedo poner en otro lugar que no le corresponda a Oleksandr Usyk y a Artur Beterbiev. O sea, Beterbiev sería injusto ponerlo como 3, como 4 o como 5. Entonces, pues aquí es compartido el número 2. Yo tengo en este escalón a 2 grandes boxeadores, Oleksandr Usyk y, por supuesto, Artur Beterbiev. No pueden estar abajo según mi clasificación y pues ya veremos al número 1, pero aquí compartido el número 2.
Y eso me gusta, que a pesar de los diferentes criterios que tenemos los tres estamos de acuerdo de que yo también tengo en el número 2 al ucraniano Oleksandr Usyk, después de esa gran victoria que tuvo en contra de Tyson Fury y que manda a Fury a la lona en el 9º asalto. ¿Se imaginan si Tyson Fury consigue la victoria ahora por knockout o vuelve a derrotar a Tyson Fury a finales de este año cuando tengan la revancha? Definitivamente se podría catapultar para ser el número 1 antes de que termine este año, el 2024. Y en el number 1, ¿a quién tenemos en el número 1? Esa es la pregunta del millón. Mi estimado Juan Manuel Dinamita Márquez, ¿a quién tienes en el número 1?
Ni dudarlo, Ricardo, ni pensarlo. Naoya Inoue, gran peleador japonés. Vemos su forma de pelear, su técnica, su boxeo. Creo su forma de aniquilar a los peleadores. Pues prácticamente la mayoría de sus peleas han sido por la vía del knockout. Ha tenido frente a TJ Doheny su última pelea, que lo noqueó a Luis el Pantera Neri, Maro Tapales, a Stephen Fulton, a Nonito Donaire en 2 ocasiones. Una fue knockout, otra fue decisión. Y a Jason Moloney. Creo que este peleador japonés es el número 1 por su actuación que tiene, donde regala en cada una de sus peleas. Cómo pelea, cómo manda a la lona a sus rivales, por supuesto con combinaciones muy, muy buenas, pero sobre todo siempre la presión que ejerce este peleador japonés a sus rivales. Y creo el nivel de oposición, yo siempre recalco, ¿por qué el número 1? Por el nivel de oposición y la forma contundente como los ha vencido.
Sí, sigue noqueando, sigue siendo dominante el japonés, y para ponerlo como número 1, pues es hoy, ¿no? Es la actualidad, pero cuenta el antecedente, ¿no? Está invicto, ya lleva 4 títulos en 4 diferentes divisiones, ya suma 23 peleas de campeonato mundial, 19 defensas de campeonato mundial, es noqueador, es espectacular, tiene, me parece, de todos los campeones, el repertorio de golpes más rico, tira el gancho al hígado como el mejor de los mexicanos, como si fuera un Márquez o un Barrera o un Chávez o un Finito López o un Kid Azteca.
現在コメンテーターとして出演しているファン・マヌエル・マルケスは、フェザー級からスーパーライト級を制した世界4階級制覇王者です。特にマニー・パッキャオとの4度にわたる激闘で知られ、4戦目では壮絶な KO 勝利を収めました。マルコ・アントニオ・バレラは、スーパーバンタム級からスーパーフェザー級を制した世界3階級制覇王者です。ナジーム・ハメドとの試合や、同郷のエリック・モラレスとの3度にわたる死闘を含む、多くの名勝負を繰り広げた選手です。フリオ・セサール・チャベスは、スーパーフェザー級からスーパーライト級を制した世界3階級制覇王者で、通算戦績107勝、 86KO、6敗2分けという驚異的な記録を誇ります。非常にタフで、相手を執拗に追い詰めるプレッシャースタイルが特徴的です。リカルド・ロペスは、ミニマム級とライトフライ級を制した世界2階級制覇王者です。通算51勝、38KO 無敗1分けという記録を持ち、無敗のままキャリアを終えた伝説的な選手です。ミニマム級の王座を22度も防衛した実績があります。キッド・アステカとは、ウェルター級で活躍したメキシコの伝説的なボクサーです。1929年にプロデビューし、1961年までの長いキャリアを持ちました。30年以上のキャリアを通じて、彼は数多くの試合に出場しました。出典によって数字が異なりますが、今回はボックスレッグを参考にしました。2つの無効試合を含む、通算251試合を戦い、191勝、113KO、47敗11分けという驚異的なレコードを持っています。彼の功績は、今もなおメキシコのボクシングファンの間で伝説として語り継がれています。
Ese tamaño es el gancho izquierdo al hígado de parte de este boxeador japonés, mi preferido de los que hay actualmente. Y pues ahí están los números que no mienten. El número 1 espectacular. No le gusta a mucha gente porque no pelea en Estados Unidos. Pues Crawford no ha peleado en Japón y no sale de Estados Unidos y eso no le quita su grandeza. Y ya lo vamos a ver seguramente pelear nuevamente en Estados Unidos, donde ha hecho 2 victorias.
実際には、井上選手はアメリカで参戦しています。2017年9月、WBO 世界スーパーフライ級タイトルの防衛戦で、そしてアントニオ・ニエレスと戦い、2020年10月、アメリカデビューを果たしました。IBF 世界バンタム級タイトル防衛戦でジェイソン・モロニー選手と対戦し、翌年にはマイケル・ダスマリナス選手を相手に、同じくアメリカで世界バンタム級タイトル防衛を行いました。
En este caso, no sé tú, Ricardo, pero por decisión unánime, Juan Manuel y yo ponemos al monstruo japonés como número 1.
Yo me voy a tener que unir a los jueces ahí también porque por decisión unánime yo también tengo al monstruo Naoya Inoue como el número 1 en el ranking libra por libra. Y eso es lo interesante de esto, que para poder estar dentro de los mejores libra por libra tienes que tener actividad. Para el monstruo Inoue va a tener su tercera pelea ya próximamente en contra de Sam Goodman este próximo 24 de diciembre. Tuvo 2 peleas en el 2024 cuando derrotó a Luis Neri. Hay que recordar que el monstruo Inoue visita la lona en esa pelea y los grandes se levantan de la lona y ganan el combate. Y después viene esa victoria en contra de TJ Doheny. Así que el monstruo Inoue, sin lugar a duda, se mantiene como el número 1 en el ranking de nosotros 3. Y por eso yo quiero saber, mi estimado Dinamita, Lalo, que la gente nos digan quiénes son sus números 5. Díganos quiénes piensan que esté el número 5, si piensan que debe ser el Canelo, si debe ser Beterbiev, y si piensan de que Inoue debería de mantenerse como el número 1. ¿No, Dinamita?
Por supuesto que nos dé su punto de vista. Todos podemos de repente equivocarnos, de repente podremos ganar la situación en la cual poder poner un peleador que no esté en el lugar que debe de ser, y la gente también, por eso su opinión es muy importante y nosotros sabemos escuchar, y por eso es la polémica. No podemos decir, bueno, sí, podrá ser, no podrá ser, o te la compro o no te la compro. Yo creo que eso es lo que vuelve más interesante estos temas.
Sí, no es fácil, Ricardo, porque en este deporte no pelean todos en el mismo lapso, no todos pelean en el mismo mes, ¿no? En otros deportes sí puedes hacer un ranking, ¿no? En el fútbol, en el básquetbol, quién es el equipo, en el béisbol de grandes ligas, ¿no? Quién es el equipo del mes, pues es más sencillo porque tienen el mismo número de juegos, la misma actividad. Aquí no, y evidentemente es subjetivo, es cada quien, ¿no? Valorar las habilidades, las facultades, lo que te genera ver a tal o cual boxeador, y por eso uno dice este es el número 1, el número 2, etcétera. Y creo que eso es lo bonito del boxeo, ¿no? Un deporte que es el único deporte en el mundo, mi querido Ricardo, Juan Manuel, el único, no hay otro deporte en el mundo que tenga acción en cualquier parte del planeta los 365 días del año. El único deporte, el boxeo.
Claro, y por eso estos rankings es bastante subjetivo, como estás comentando, Dinamita, Lalo. ¿Sí? Estamos viendo la actividad de los boxeadores, el nivel de oposición y, por supuesto, la actividad. ¿Qué tanto están peleando durante todo el año?
Boxing news. Well, you know how it works. What we do is we take a particular weight class and we make a top 5. Everybody behind the scenes make one, and we do the average. Not this time. This time, we're leaving it to the experts. That's right, pound for pound, our top 5. And the only 2 lists aren't the ones that matter. The champs, Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri. What I'll do is I'll let them give their top 5. I'll let them argue about it. Once again, it is pound for pound. Paulie, Chris, it is you guys. You guys can complain all you want about one another's picks. So, starting out at number 5, we won't have an argument because you both put the same one. Bam Rodriguez. My question here, Paulie playing devil's advocate. A little early, a little young, just getting his career started. Is he number 5? Maybe a more experienced, seasoned guy you can put at number 5?
I want to give a disclaimer. I am totally against pound-for-pound lists. I think they are part of the reason why guys don't fight each other, you know, because then once you get beat or knocked off once or twice, you'll never be on a pound-for-pound list. I think there are terrific fighters in boxing that will never be on a pound-for-pound list that may beat or could beat guys that are on people's definitive pound-for-pound lists. So I can't stand these things because, in reality, I think they're one of the causes, one of several causes of why you guys don't fight each other. Having said that, if you're a Hollywood fighter who just navigates around, you're not going to be on my pound-for-pound list because you know if you're a guy who chases the toughest fights, puts yourself at risk, then you're going to be on my pound-for-pound list, especially if you're able to chase those toughest fights and then keep winning them. And that's why Bam Rodriguez is on my pound-for-pound list. I don't care how old he is. This guy chases the toughest fights. He wins them. He looks good. He doesn't look to pitter-patter and say, okay, well, I took a tough fight. Now let me take an easy fight. No, I mean, we just fought Guevara, but that's because he's basically eliminated so much of his competition that we got to keep generating opponents for him. He has been absolutely dominant and keeps getting better. There is no way he's a Hollywood fighter. You know, again, this ain't a popularity contest for me. Go chase the toughest fights and go win them. You could even go chase toughest fights. If you win enough of them, you'll be on my pound-for-pound list. This guy is a top 5 pound-for-pound.
When you look at it, not just about his toughness, which I agree with you, Paulie, 100%, Chris. Let's turn it over to you and talk about technique. What does he have? Part of my pound for pound when I look at it, when you have this fighter in front of you and you went, how am I going to beat this guy? I got to go, there's no easy road. I know he's a hard puncher, but he's not that complete. Talk about his technique.
I guess I have to take my chance to qualify my pound for pounds as well, since Paulie already did that. I don't love pound for pounds either, but there is a place for them. And it's usually barbershops, and it gets people talking. And there's always that. And you get diehard fans, you get people in comments, you get people going back and forth.
Barbershops, not legitimite media that has an influence over TV networks. No, exactly.
Exactly. So the place where they belong is barbershop talking. We're doing.
Again, legitimate media is an oxymoron.
We're doing theoretical thought experiments of matching up guys who are in different weight classes fighting each other. It's an impossible thing to do, but it is fun. That's why we're doing this show right now. So when it comes to Bam. Oh, okay. Oh, another qualifier. When I do my pound for pounds, I go, who kicks whose ass? That's where my pound for pound rankings come from. I don't think all the other people do that. A lot of people put like, oh, well, they did this. They have this many titles. They do their accomplishments. I don't do that. You put them in the ring together. Who kicks whose ass? That's it. So all of my answers are going to be related to that. Bam is a bad mother. Man, he brings it. Technically, the things that he does, and I said this on a past show, the only reason I don't have him higher is because he still needs to do more and he's young. And he will. I believe he will. And I think he is actually going to be one of the pound-for-pound greats in a couple of years. We got guys, that are a little bit of the old guard that are at the top of this list that are going to be going to the wayside, going to the land of retirement in the next couple of years. I think Bam slides in perfectly. And he's got a lot of big fights that are still to be made, a lot of names. He's called the Legend Slayer for a reason. He's seeking these guys out and he's taking heads. And from a technical standpoint, he really does it all. He's fastly approaching what looks like a perfect fighter. He's a southpaw. He's got a jab. He can box you. He can set you up. He can set traps. He's got great movement. He cuts angles. He does it in exciting fashion. You name it, this kid does it. He can knock you out with either hand. Sonny Edwards, that was supposed to be a tough fight. He's fighting a guy who can box, a style they're not really used to. He outboxes him. He outjabs him. And he finishes him with a beautiful 1-2. I mean, the kid does it all. And even when he is fighting like a guy like Guevara, which no one really wanted to see that fight, we want to see him in mega fights. Guess what? He does what he's supposed to do.
Treat him like he should be.
He gets him out of there. You don't belong in the ring with me. You don't stay in the ring with me. So Bam, I mean, I got such high praise for this young man. And on top of it, I know him personally. He is a very, very serious young man. He takes his training very, very seriously. He's going to be around for a long time, and that's why he's finally breaking into the top 5 pound for pound.
I don't know him personally. You know what? He's still in my top 5.
Yeah, and another thing is that he's not a guy who fights down to his opposition. No. If you're not supposed to be in there, you're going to be out of there in 3 rounds. It's a different kind of guy. So we have a first disagreement at number 4, and this is where I'm very, very curious. When you talk about your number 4 being Beterbiev and Bivol, the 2 Bs, Chris, you had Bivol, Paulie, you had Beterbiev. The idea of 2 guys who fought, 1 guy won. Is it who wins on paper or who wins, in your opinion, in the fight? A lot of people thought Bivol won that fight. Paulie, when you're making
I thought Bivol won that fight.
Right.
I thought Bivol won that fight.
That's what I'm curious about.
But for me, it's the result. I guess Chris's criteria is a little bit different. That's the only reason we're going to disagree here. And honestly, I thought Bivol won that fight too. But having said that, I feel like Beterbiev matches the rest of my criteria. He's not a Hollywood fighter. He chases the toughest fights possible. He's just not been able to get them. You know, people have just not been chomping at the bit to get in there with Beterbiev. You know, rightfully so to a degree, but at the same time, in the spirit of competition, Beterbiev is one of these guys. I'll mention it, again, like a broken record, Eastern fighter who chases the toughest fights possible when he can get them. And then, of course, the criticism, what if I didn't fought this guy or that guy? Well, sometimes it's just nobody wants to fight you, man. I mean, you can't put a gun to somebody's head and load it and say, well, get in the ring right now. You can't do that. So that's the only reason Beterbiev has not fought an even higher level of opposition. But when he has, he's been pretty much dominant. He's 39 years old. I thought he came up short against Bivol, as do most of my boxing, brotherhood. I don't find a lot of boxing people that, I mean guys that actually fought, and the guys, media doesn't count, that actually think Beterbiev won that fight. But having said that, like I said, he's very, very difficult. I still think he's a guy who chases the best fights possible. We'll probably get a Bivol rematch as opposed to, when we're dealing with some Western fighters, you get away with one, you don't even want to give a rematch. These guys, I guarantee you, will rematch. That's just the way they're born and bred and built. And that matters a lot to me. Again, he's the anti-Hollywood.
So when it comes to you picking Bivol, Chris, is it because, as Paulie said, you thought he won the result on paper? The W and the L don't mean as much to you, yes or no?
Well, this is my list, so I can do whatever the hell I want. So I chose Bivol because one, I figured it would make some waves, but also I do think he won that fight. And I think if they fight again, he wins again. And he didn't get the victory last time, but I think he does if they fight again. So for me, I couldn't put Beterbiev in the spot over Bivol because one, I thought he won the first fight, and if I fight again, I believe Bivol will win. So it kind of puts Beterbiev out because then now he's out of my top 5 because I still wanted to slide Bam in there. And Beterbiev, no knock on him. He is a phenomenal, phenomenal fighter. He has incredible accomplishments. He's undisputed in a very, very tough weight class, and he is an all-out destructive destroyer who goes out there to put a hurt on you. Even the guys that don't want to fight him, they're forced to because he's got all the titles. So it worked out. But Bivol, for me, that style that he has, that in-and-out judgment of range, that busy left hand, his punch selection, he's a very, very difficult guy to handle. I've worked corners against Bivol. I was in a corner when Sullivan Barrera challenged for the WBA title, I believe.
Must suck.
It sucked.
Yeah.
In the first round, I go, well, we're not winning this one. Because the guy's ability to control range and stick good, hard, clean, loose punches on you. I mean, I really had never seen something that close, that spectacular. And I think he gives everyone in the world trouble. And I was one of the only people when they were talking about the Canelo fight that I was like, this is a really, really tough fight for Canelo. And now after seeing it, I don't think any version of Canelo ever beats Bivol.
And I'll say this, if Bivol would be able to win the rematch, he probably winds up on my pound-for-pound list and replaces Beterbiev again, unless somebody else does something drastic and enters that realm. I think that,
But that's also
like
one of the things why we hate pound for pounds, because it's such a transient list.
No, but
also
also
change at any time.
Why guys won't fight each other. I'm not going to hold a loss against you. You know what I'm saying? If you belong on that list, and I think somebody like Bivol, if he would win the rematch against Beterbiev, would
pretty much abolishes or wipes out his loss.
Enter the top 5.
All right, what I'm curious about, another agreement at number 3, the monster, Naoya Inoue. Both of you had him at number 3. When you look at the puzzle that a boxer presents offensively, defensively, their ability to move, their style, everything, Naoya Inoue, you just talked about cornering, Chris. If you have to corner against Naoya Inoue, is that the toughest task in boxing? Finding a way to beat Naoya Inoue and he's number 3. Is that fair or not?
Yeah.
Skill set wise.
Because his fundamentals are so solid, and he does, what works in the beginning works at the top, and he's doing that. but he also has game-changing power, and he hurts you to the body, and he can hurt you to the head. And so even if the fight's going well, which he almost never fights anyone when the fights are going well, but you're in trouble. Like he can catch you at any moment and hurt you, and not just like ice you. He hit you in the body. Whoop, that changed the fight. I was talking to my nephew earlier today in the gym. Sometimes, well, a lot of times, one punch changes an entire fight. And it doesn't have to be a shot that knocks you down. It doesn't have to be a shot that knocks you out. Some guys just get hit with some shots like, oop, this is going to change the way I'm going to approach everything. Inoue has that kind of game-changing power.
I remember Camacho's career changed his whole career when he getting hit with that shot with Edwin Rosario. He never fought the same way again.
Yeah.
ヘクター・カマチョはスーパーフェザー級、ライト級、スーパーライト級を制した世界3階級王者であり、エドウィン・ロサリオはライト級、スーパーライト級を制した2階級制覇王者です。カマチョとロサリオの試合は1986年6月13日に行われ、カマチョの持つ WBC 世界ライト級タイトルの初防衛戦でした。一方、ロサリオは元 WBC 世界ライト級王者で、タイトルを失った後に4連勝し、再び挑戦の機会を得て臨んだ試合です。ロサリオは強打で知られており、この試合でもカマチョを何度も追い詰める場面がありました。しかし、カマチョは粘り強く試合を進め、2対1の判定勝利でタイトルを防衛しました。カマチョは、それまで身体能力を生かした攻撃的で華やかなボクシングスタイルが特徴的でしたが、この試合以降、戦い方が守備的で慎重なものへと変化したと言われています。
Now I'm not getting it. Yeah, exactly. So it depends on how you the guys who have that kind of power that leave something in you. They leave something with you when they touch you with those shots. So we're looking at Doheny right here, who literally like blew out his hip from getting hit with body shots. Like the guy has crazy power for such a smaller fighter. The only reason I don't have him higher, he got dropped. There was a susceptibility there, and he is so offensive-minded. He does get tall at times. There's opportunities, he does get hit. Especially now we're seeing in these higher weight classes. He was getting touched with jabs from southpaw position. Guys are starting to get through. He's looking less invincible as he's moving up in weight. That's the only reason I have him at number 3, because I am so high on everything that he does. Listen, if we did this a year ago or 6 months ago before he got dropped by Neri, I'd probably have him higher.
My question for you, Paulie, the idea that if he were a middleweight, he'd be number 1. That the weight class does, is that part of it too?
Yeah, it's possible. There might be, more strength of schedule, but regardless, he chases the toughest fights possible. You saw the difficult fight he had with Nonito Tordonera the first time he rematched him.
Broken orbital in that fight too.
Yeah, broken orbital in that fight. Show toughness, show character. Also, everybody was high on Stephen Fulton. Maybe a little bit of a difficult style clash. Sure, bring him on. He brought him on and blew him away, Those things matter because the way you're talking about pre-fight and post-fight is different. Obviously looking back, he easily beat Fulton. He easily eliminated Fulton. But, the fights he's chasing, even when maybe there isn't all the toughest fights around because he's a smaller guy, he's still chasing the toughest ones possible. Now Nakatani's being talked about. When it's time to make that fight's going to happen. You're not going to end up playing games like Western fighters do, where they hang around each other for a decade and never fight. These guys are just built and bred differently. And just like I talked about Eastern Europeans, talk about the Asians as well. They make the fights, they chase the fights. They want to actually see if they're the best. They don't want to just portray the best while giving you an illusion. They actually want to see themselves. They want to test themselves and show themselves. They got what's called pride. You got to be able to sleep at night and knowing who you're portraying to be is really you. In the West, athletes in the West are typically not doing this anymore. They can sleep totally fine because I think they're spineless. You know what I mean? But fight a true athlete. You got to be able to lay your head on the pillow and know, I can beat this guy or I couldn't beat this guy. I got to know though. You know what I mean? In my career, I had that same approach. I had to know. You know what I mean? I knew certain fights would be difficult, but I had to know if I could do it or not. And I could sleep at night because you know what? I found out, right? Whether you win or lose. Guys now, if they paid their bank account, they can sleep fine. All right, bro, you got less spine than me, that's for sure. Because I wouldn't be able to live like that. I would always question it no matter what. And I think when you're talking about a guy like Naoya Inoue, he's not a middleweight. maybe that's what does count against them as far as or welterweight or whatever. You know, I'm not saying,
lightweight. It's hard to make a name in the United States. Yeah.
But he's chasing the best fights possible, and we're going to continue to get that with Naoya Inoue. We don't have to question him. Maybe Nakatani beats him. Maybe he doesn't. Who knows? You know what I mean? Even when Nakatani will also have that same mindset. Who's going to chase the best fights? There are certain fighters we never have to worry if they're going to be willing to entertain us. They're never going to play a role. They're actually going to be the fighters they portray themselves to be.
Now, I got to combine 2 and 1. Why? We have 2 fighters left, if you know anything about boxing. It's Usyk and Crawford. You guys switched them. That's right. Chris, you had Crawford at number 2. Usyk as number 1. Paulie had Usyk number 2. Crawford number 1. The differences that made you put them where they put them. Let me throw some out there. Chris, once again, you had Crawford at number 2. Crawford has taken a lot of great names. He's moved up in weight class. Technically, he can do almost anything. Was it the allure of the heavyweight? Both guys are small for their particular weight classes. Crawford is not gigantic for 154. Also, Usyk, not a gigantic heavyweight. What was the difference maker to you, Chris?
Well, I mean, all 3 of these, for me, we're splitting hairs. I think these guys are so close. And like I said about the Inoue fight, yeah, he got dropped his last fight, but that's not a disclaimer. Listen, you can go down and you can still be number 1 in my mind. That's not it. But I'm going back to my original criteria. If we put them in the same hypothetical universe where they're the same size and they fight, who kicks whose ass? I think Crawford kicks Inoue's ass. I think his style is very, very difficult to deal with. He's like an alien out there, the way that he fights with both positions. And yes, Inoue is very, very fundamental. But again, we've seen some holes with him. And the reason that I have Crawford at number 2, just slightly behind Usyk, is the fight we're looking at right here, Madrimov. So Crawford still gets the win, right? And against a very, very, very top-flight guy in Madrimov, Israel Madrimov. People do not understand how good he really is. He showed it that night. Very, very close fight. Crawford struggled. I've seen Usyk struggle in fights, but he closes the show with an almost dominant win. Like he struggles, but then he figures it out in a way that you're like, yep, that's the guy. I think a lot of people question the end of that fight with Crawford, with Madrimov. Like, yeah, he struggled, but like, yeah, he came on strong at the end. But man, I don't know if they fight again, if he can really beat him. Usyk, it's like there's no question. This is the guy. I don't know. So I've seen Usyk struggle, and one thing about him, he just doesn't know how to lose. I don't see how he loses any fight because he's so mentally strong. He has like almost like fanatical, psychotic focus to him. That is the difference to me. Not that Crawford doesn't, because Crawford is extremely focused as well. But I just see Usyk edging it in terms of their positioning for me because I just don't see the guy losing.
What I'm curious about, and Paulie, please let me know, part of the criteria, it's not supposed to be part of the criteria, but we do mentally, we go, if we made a highlight of this guy, would you want to watch it? Right? There's an it factor. There's a factor of entertainment, the wow factor. In a way, to me, it's a huge wow factor. I watch him fight and I go, oh my God, just the incredible finishes. Crawford has some wow factor. Usyk, certainly less so, Paulie. He's an undersized heavyweight. He doesn't have that Mike Tyson type highlight. Tends to win by decision against elite guys. What's your thought on that? Maybe keeping him. Crawford does have the kind of showboat highlights. Usyk, not really that guy.
You know, I give Usyk a lot of credit, but I don't have him at number 1. But regardless, again, it's like splitting hairs here. And for me, Usyk, okay, you may not have the knockout highlight package that, you know, will impress even the layman or the casual, but the fact that he can take a super world-class fighter and basically put him mentally in his pocket and just basically like, I got you under control, bro. There's nothing you're going to do about it. That, to me, understanding, having been in a ring with world-class fighters, and understanding how difficult that is to make you basically absorb that mindset where basically like, bro, we're going to dance my dance tonight. There's nothing you're going to do about it. Yep. No matter how good you are or have been, tonight it's just not going to do it for you. Whatever you've done before that's been successful, it's just not going to do it for you. The fact that he's able to do that against one world-class fighter after another world-class fighter after another world-class fighter in a couple of different weight classes has been amazing to me. The reason I don't have it number 1 is because Crawford has basically done the same thing through 4 weight classes. And the reasoning that the champ here, Chris, says that, oh, why Crawford, the Madrimov is why he has him at number 2, is actually why I have him at number 1. Because Madrimov, I think, is severely underrated. And then to beat a guy like that, when you watch Madrimov in that Crawford fight, I'm not looking at, wow, Crawford is lacking something. I'm looking at, whoa. Crawford's not lacking anything, but this guy Madrimov is playing chess with him neck and neck here, and he's capable of it. He's a very, very good fighter. He's able to think with Crawford. He's able to react with Crawford. He's able to understand positioning with Crawford. And he's naturally bigger than Crawford, so it's a little bit of a tougher fight for Crawford. And yet Crawford still skins through it, but he gets through it. The whole time, never losing focus. The whole time, never really losing that sense of position or going into that panic mode. Even though with a lesser fighter against a guy like Madrimov, who gets put in that same position, might go through that. For me, Crawford is essentially an Eastern-minded fighter in the West. I mean, you don't find these kind of mentally strong fighters on all facets, being intelligence-wise, IQ, mental stability, concentration, focus. You're finding less and less of these fighters in the West, as talented as they are in the West, because there's very, very talented fighters in the West, but that mental concentration isn't as honed in as it is often with a guy like Crawford. I can't say anybody else has it. There's a reason Gervonta Davis is not on this list is because I don't get to see it, bro. He doesn't fight anybody. I don't get. So I can't tell you that Gervonta would keep this kind of super concentration when put in these kind of situations. I've seen it with Crawford time and again. He's been dominant. He's been good. He keeps going up the weight classes. For me, splitting hairs. It's the same thing. I'm just a little bit more impressed with Crawford's body of work than I am with Usyk's body of work, but both super, super impressive.
You know what's funny? I normally don't like heavyweights on pound for pounds because it's so hard to.
Some people don't believe in it.
It's so hard. It's so hard to put them.
We do. So what?
Right. It's so hard to put them in the position, in the shoes of another weight class. But Usyk, I think, transcends that. That's another reason why I have him at number one.
He's also been a cruiserweight too.
He's also been a cruiserweight, which is another reason why I got him at. Hey, dude, he's fighting super heavyweights. And this is not the era of the '80s when a big heavyweight was 230. You know, big heavyweights now are 280. And he's able to deal with these guys.
And smooth and fast, yeah.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. Listen, we are in a great era of pound for pound elites. Because those top three guys, we said splitting hairs, and now we got young guys like Bam stepping in at number 5, and then we have two fighters that pretty much could be interchangeable in Bivol and Beterbiev. We're in a good era for pound guys.
Can I
and they're fighting people.
Can I say something?
Of course.
This was so much more enjoyable to actually be able to do this with somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. And we threw out the media picks.
You haven't done this once. He hasn't done this one
because
time.
I didn't have to. You know what I mean? Like,
we at least had the same guys.
Even when we
different places.
Yeah, even when we disagreed, it was like it was
I
understandable.
get it.
If you were it's an understandable disagreement. With the media picks, you got guys on the list, and I'm like, what's this guy? No, I was so worried we would wind up with a Hollywood guy. I'm telling you, because I got a Hollywood pound for pound list and your real pound for pound list.
All right, next show.
I was
got an idea.
worried that one of the Hollywood pound for pound guys would bleed into the real pound for pound list. But you know what? We didn't have to deal with the media picks, so there was no threat of that.
Next show,
thank you. Thank you for knowing what you're talking about.
Next show, we're doing the media pound for pound, and we're just going to shred it.
Please. Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. It gives me ashida. Don't do that to me. I gotta take what do they call it? A Tums after that. Yeah.
Right, we gotta get that stomach straight. Well, if you enjoyed it, let us know. We have the champs make the top 5 in the pound for pound. Let us know what weight classes you want us to talk about. We'll have the champs do list.
ProBox TV Contender Series on December 7th. Look for an all-out Irish war.